Okay, so if any of you guys follow me on Discord or on Tumblr, I didn't bother tweeting it because it was a really long message. Probably should have put it on YouTube though. Change Your Mind pretty much killed all the immediate Steven Universe theories that I had planned out. So all the work leading up to them that I had done, I can't use it anymore. I might be able to use some of it. I might be able to rework some of the video I was going to post today into something else. We'll see down the line. If not, I'll probably just tell you guys what it was at some point. Which makes me think, in retrospect now, I probably should have planned to post that last Star Versus discussion that I was going to make this week. But I really wanted to ride the coattails of Change Your Mind. I'm sure you guys can understand. It sucks because the episode, it finished this whole arc, you know, and it had like a sense of finality to it, and while it posed some questions of its own, it pretty much answered all the questions that we had leading up to it. So I don't have a theory to post for you guys today. So if you do follow me on Discord or on Tumblr, you will have seen where I posted asking for you guys to send me questions that you wanted me to answer. Not necessarily even Steven Universe questions. And I have a few, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to answer them one by one until I feel like I've got enough footage for the video. And any that I don't answer here, I will try to get around to answering in another video at some point, or I'll just answer them directly at some point, like through text eventually. I figured this was a good compromise, since I figured at least some of the questions would be about stuff in the recent episodes or whatever. I've got a couple here on Tumblr, only a couple on Tumblr, which I found interesting. Some of you guys like DM'd me, but I'm not taking them from DMs this time, so it's only in the ask box. And I'm gonna assume that if you didn't message me on Anon on Tumblr, or go to Tumblr from Discord to message me on Anon, that you're okay with me using your username. Like, I know it's a silly thing to worry about, but I know I used to say very personal things on social medias that were tied to my actual identity, but that I only shared with a select group of people. I'm just kind of half worried that some of you guys are like that. So I don't like sharing even usernames unless people give me permission. But I'm going to assume if you didn't message me on Anonymous that you don't mind. Okay, so we have Aussie America asked, do you think they will large time skip next season of Steven Universe or just continue where they left off? That's a really good question. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think they could do either. I think if they go with a time skip and then just let us pick up on how things have changed based on context details, it could work really super well. I do think the writers on this show are good enough at writing lore from context. I mean, obviously they're good at that. I made a whole channel around figuring out what that lore from context was saying. I think they're good enough at writing in that way. Sorry, I'm stumbling over all my words today. That if they go that route, it could be really interesting and a way to really distinguish this new arc of the show, because they are calling this a new arc. Everything after this, a new arc of the show. It could really distinguish this new arc of the show from the previous one. Like, I think as much as the next fan, I want to see all of the formerly corrupted gems integrate with human society and relearn how to be themselves. I mean, some of them have got to have shell shock from this. You got to imagine, right? But that's another thing that we can pick up from context fairly easily. And I will admit that while I want to see the results of the changes that are inevitably going to be made to Homeworld and its society, I don't necessarily want to see them making those changes. That sounds kind of dry to me. Maybe it won't end up being dry, but I could see it being really dry. But I also think that the writers are skilled enough that if they decide to just pick things up where they left off and show us these things, rather than just let us pick up on them from context, it could also be really neat. I'm not really sure which one I prefer, honestly, the more I think about it. I was going to side with them just picking up where they left off, but the more I think about it, the time skip isn't a terrible idea, so I don't even know which one I like better. The other one of the couple of questions that I got through Tumblr, I'm going to wait to answer later if I get around to it. It's one which gives me the opportunity to talk about something I've been wanting to talk about on the channel, but I'm trying to gather up the courage to do so. So we'll see what happens. So moving on over to the Discord, I've read some of these, but not all of these. So if I'm surprised by some of them, that's why. Squadala asks, what do you think is in Lynes' chest / what do you think will happen in season 6? I will say right out the gate that I do plan to actually make a full video talking about where the show might go from here, so I'm not going to answer the second part of that. I will say that I think there's plenty of places it could go, at the very least, and that more so than ever, I think it is possible that we will see the creators of the gems, even if it's just in flashback form, like someone telling Steven the story of where gems came from. I think that's way more possible now than it's ever been before, because up until now, I just kind of assumed that the conflict with Homeworld would end with the end of the show, you know? As for the chest that Rose left in Lynes' dimension, I have no idea at this point. I had several ideas for a while, but then every single scenario in which one of those ideas could have been proven or disproven came and went, and we still didn't learn anything about its contents at all. I'm stumped. Like, we know that Rose isn't coming back at this point. She's gone. It's less likely than ever that Rose was experimenting with ways that gems could reproduce without harming their host planets. And I doubt it's a gem in there, because we've already seen how she would store a gem within Lion's Mane in the form of bismuth. So I have no idea. If any of you guys have ideas for what might be in there, chime in the comments down below, because I'd really be interested in hearing your theories at this point. Squadala also asks if I know what their name is a reference to, and I think so. I didn't look it up on purpose, but isn't it from like one of those goofy, what were they called? Sega CD Zelda games? Isn't it like some nonsense word from one of those that just kind of became memified on YouTube or something? I don't know. I feel like if I'm right about this, it's one of those aspects of YouTube meme culture that I'm vaguely aware of but never really participated in, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm right, because I really don't like making an idiot of myself. Potion Party asks if I have any Starverses theories leading up to the release of new episodes, and I don't really have any theories, but like I mentioned earlier, I do have another Starverses discussion coming up, so you do have that to look forward to. They also ask if I will ever do anime reviews, or if I plan to just stick to Western cartoons, and that's actually something I've been meaning to ask you guys about. I actually have an anime review that I'd like to do, but I wasn't sure how you guys would feel about it, so I guess chime in on that in the comments down below as well. It's the review of the new Dragon Ball movie, but since I haven't really covered any other Dragon Ball like story content on the channel, I don't know how much you guys would really enjoy something like that. But like I said, let me know. Let me know what you think. The Hollow Kid VG asks several things. I'm just going to run down the whole list. There may be some of these I can't answer. I don't know yet. This is one of the ones I haven't read all the way through. One, what do I think would happen if a gem fused with a cluster gem or a gem shard? I don't think they could. I don't think that would work. I don't really have a reason for it, except that the cluster gems and various gem shards don't seem to have a consciousness, but corrupted gems don't really seem to have a consciousness either, and Jasper was able to fuse with one of those, so I don't know. I just don't think it's something that's going to come up, and so I think they're going to write it off as being impossible eventually, if there's ever a reason for anyone to even consider it. 2 asks about Rose's moss, if I think it's a plant gem hybrid, and if I think that the watermelon Stevens and pumpkins can likewise become plant gem hybrids. I actually talked about this in one of my theory videos before. Yes, I think they were plant gem hybrids. I even think that in a way the watermelon Stevens already are, since they clearly take information from Steven and mutate plants to resemble him using that information, which is effectively what Rose did to create him using her information in the first place. So even if they're not literally a hybrid between a plant and a gemstone, they're a hybrid of plant life and gem technology, if that makes sense. 3, since we know that they use the fluid from the diamonds to make gems in kindergarten, so I think that other gems would be able to create fluid and make gems in a kindergarten. No, I think that's specifically a power of diamonds. 4, how do I think robinoids are made? What do I think of them being made of ground up gem shards and or diamond fluid? I hate that idea. There is nothing to suggest that Homeworld made any use of destroyed gems before they started doing the cluster experiments at all. 5, since gem shards can possess objects, and Lapis and the trapped gems on Homeworld possess the objects they are in, such as the mirror. And since Steven has a gem inside of him, does that mean that he is technically possessed by Pink Steven? No, it does not. Pink Steven is just half of Steven. They're two halves of the same being. They reunited with each other by fusing with each other, by literally becoming one thing again. Lapis was not part of the mirror, she was just attached to it. And I'm sorry if I sound a little miffed, it's just I don't like getting questions about that scene that try to imply that there was something more or something sinister to it. It was exactly what it appeared to be. Two halves of Steven were separated from each other and then had to reunite. 6, do I think that a fully grown human could become a gem-human hybrid? No, I don't. Okay, maybe, yes, possibly with a whole lot of work and trial and error, but I don't think it's something that could just happen. Gee, there's way more of these than I thought there were. I'm going to have to cut it off relatively soon, I think. 7, do you think we're going to see any more gem hybrids? Do I think it's likely that Ronaldo's statement in Rocknaldo about introducing a bunch of crushed up gemstones into a human bloodstream would create a gem-human hybrid? No, I don't. I don't think we're going to see any more gem-human hybrids, at least none that already exist or any that would be created in that way. I think it's possible that in the future, other gems might choose to create hybrids like Steven, the same way that Rose did, that might be something that is brought up if the show goes on long enough. But no, I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think anything that Ronaldo says has any practical weight to it whatsoever, so I certainly don't think that that particular theory of his is correct. I've never actually learned how to pronounce your name. Is it Quannit? Is that correct? Either way, this is the kind of question about the two halves of Steven that I don't mind getting. Just, what are my general thoughts on the two halves of Steven? I think it's pretty plain, and I don't think it's much more complicated than this. I think one half was all of Steven's gem information, but without a personality, because Steven, the human, Steven's humanity, his human side, was the personality side of him as a gem character. Whereas Rose, for example, was a complete person with a whole bunch of powers and a whole bunch of instincts and drives, but also a personality mixed in there affecting all of that. Steven, as a pure gem, wouldn't really have that, since those things exist. That personality aspect exists in his human half. That's his humanity, and that's what the human Steven was. It was his humanity, his emotions, his personality. I also think you can interpret Pink Steven as Steven's gem powers being given physical form. I think that would be a perfectly adequate way of interpreting that particular character. But other than that, I don't think it's all that complicated. I don't think it was supposed to be all that complicated. I think we were supposed to understand it very quickly. Red Rabbit asked more about what I think is coming next for Steven Universe. I'll give you this much. I do think we're going to see some resistance from at least some of the homeworld gems that were beneath the diamonds. I think that not everyone is going to like that society is changing. There are always going to be fundamentalists who are okay with the status quo and resist change because they don't feel like you should go against the norm. These are probably going to be higher up gems, not diamond level, obviously, because the diamonds seem to be on board with making a change at this point. But like gems like Emerald, maybe. Gems that had a lot of power already and like that they had a lot of power and don't mind stepping on the gems without power in order to keep it. So I do think we're going to get at least that much. I feel like if they don't explore something like that, especially in our current political climate, that would be a huge missed opportunity. We've got another multi-part one. I'm going to try to get through this whole thing, and then I'm going to stop after this. I know there's other questions that you guys sent me. Like I said, I will try to get to those at some point relatively soon in either video or text form. But this video is already running a little longer than I wanted it to. I want to wrap things up. Equinox Omega asks, 1, do I think that the diamonds were the first gems? And that their mecha ship was their original probe. Not exactly, but I do have a theory planned that will cover my general thoughts on this, so I'm going to refrain from saying any more for now. 2, why don't they seem to remember who made them? I am pretty sure at this point that White Diamond made the other diamonds, and that White Diamond definitely remembers who made her. Again, I'll talk about that in that upcoming video. I promise that is something that will be answered. Geez, these are kind of all about this, aren't they? Alright, let's skip 3 as well, because that's another one that I'm going to talk about a little bit too. Like, maybe I won't talk about this one directly, but I think the implication will be there. Let's just say 3 asks why somebody would build a Von Neumann machine with feelings, and I don't think that was their intention. I just think White Diamond evolved to the point that she developed feelings. 4, do I think that we'll learn more about the diamond secretions? Probably. I don't know. And 5, how far do I think the diamonds have really changed? Will they still be colonizing other planets? Will they just treat their subjects better? What about the gems infused in structures on Homeworld? First of all, I think that those gems infused in structures on Homeworld are the structures. I think that their bodies are the structures, which poses a bit of a problem if we are to assume that they have not shape-shifted into those forms in order to become those buildings, that they can't take on another form other than that. Because if they can't take on another form other than the form of, like, statuary and walls and shit, they're kind of screwed. I mean, they're not like Lapis in the mirror. They are literally the wall. Their face is literally in the wall. They have limbs coming out of the wall. They're not just stuck in it. They are it. So my hope is that they're just gems that are built to be really good at shape-shifting for long periods of time, and they have shape-shifted into those things, and they can shape-shift back. Because otherwise, their essentially infinite lives are going to be a perpetual nightmare forever. And I don't want to think about that, man. I got my own stuff to worry about. As for how far the diamonds have actually changed, I don't think they've changed all that much yet. I definitely think they're going to halt colonization efforts while they figure stuff out. But I don't think they've changed all that much yet. And they are going to have to keep being influenced by either Steven directly or what Steven has taught them and their own interactions with each other now that they've freed themselves up to be more open and honest with each other. I do not, in short, think that they've been entirely redeemed. I think they are beginning an arc. I did say there's the one thing I wanted to talk about maybe I'm really super anxious about, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it right here. It's the other question that I got from Tumblr, asking whether or not I have any OCs, whether they're Steven Universe characters or not. And I don't necessarily think of them as OCs, because I think of OCs as characters from someone else's universe. I am writing a book, though. I've been meaning to plug it on the channel for a long time, but whenever I try to talk about it to a lot of people, and there's a lot of you guys, I get super anxious about it and have to run and hide in a corner for a while. So I'm going to push through this as fast as I can. I am writing a book. It's a fiction book. I'm actually drafting its sequels already too. Shopping around for a publisher, or else I'm going to have to pay out the butt to self-publish, because I won't publish with Amazon, because Amazon is a garbage company. It's incredibly immoral, and I refuse to work with them. Of course, since it's a fiction book with a story, I had to create my own characters. So briefly, to go over those characters and who they are to each other and what their story is, the books primarily focus on a character named Joanna Seeker. And it would be, I guess 2 of the 3 other characters are technically her family, but they're all like her friend group. And they exist in an alternate version of our world where people have learned to tap into a sort of extra dimensional energy and use it to effectively give themselves superpowers. It's structured very much like a martial arts anime, like a Dragon Ball or something. And in effect, I'm making use of the framework that was streamlined by series like that, where character growth is represented by defeating stronger and stronger enemies to tell the story of these characters. It's definitely not a Steven universe. Violence does tend to be the answer in my universe, but it's never without careful consideration. I've always been a fan of morally gray characters, so there's a lot of gray morality in my story, but I think I've done a pretty good job of making the characters likable and relatable enough. And I'm trying to work representation in there whenever I can. So that's another thing, if that's something that concerns you. I actually have a writing blog where I posted really old, really cringy versions of some of the chapters. If you guys want to read them, I'll post the link in the description down below this video. And that's all I'm going to talk about that today, because I'm about to have a freaking heart attack over it. As per usual though, guys, I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on anything that I talked about in this video today? Let's get hopefully multiple discussions going in the comment section down below or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.